Hello, friends. So I'm back again, this time with the part 5 of the life and times of Chandragupta Maurya. This is the concluding part of his life, and I have divided this into three sections. One is of course, you are seeing it on the screen. That is the account of Megasthenes on Chandragupta, whom he calls Sandrocotus. We will also look at his family life, just a small slide, and the most important part is the which I have titled as the last word on Chandragupta, as to what exactly happened to Chandragupta. So we'll just start again with the first part, and that is the family of Chandragupta, family life. And Buddhist texts like Mahabodhi Vamsa and Mahavamsa, they talk about Chandragupta marrying his maternal uncle's daughter. No names have been provided though. Then we look at the Jain accounts like Parishishta Parvan, and they talk about a woman named Durdhara, who was the wife of Chandragupta and the mother to Bindusara, Chandragupta's son. Jain accounts also talk about an unnamed daughter of the Nanda king who fell for Chandragupta at first sight and was allowed to marry him. Friends, there is also a mention in legends of Chandragupta marrying an unnamed daughter of Seleucus Nicator, which we had discussed last time. This happened after the treaty in which the Mauryan king gave 500 elephants to Seleucus, and in return he received four provinces from the Seleucid emperor. And apart from that, what Strabo and others say about epigama, or a marriage contract happening. Friends, we do not have the name of this Greek lady. A name, perhaps her name was Helena, but then Helen, that name is a modern creation, and nowhere you will find it. This is a creation of what, about 200 years creation of that name. But anyhow, we have got all these names, and we have his only son, which is Bindusara. We do not have the names of any of his other sons, which may have been there, but they are not named in any account. So we will just presume or assume that Bindusara was his only son, and of course he had more than one wife at least. So now we come to the important part of Megasthenes' accounts on Sandrocotus. And Megasthenes was actually ambassador of Seleucus. The story goes that Chandragupta sent some drugs, Indian drugs, to Seleucus after Seleucus got ill. And Seleucus, after taking those medicines, was okay. And in gratitude, he sent Megasthenes to the court at Patliputra. Now, friends, Megasthenes is the first foreigner who has written about India while staying in India. We have the accounts of Herodotus, Ctesias, and others, but they have never visited India. They have spoken about India through the Persian traders, maybe, and many legends about India they have mentioned in their books, but they have never visited India. This was the first time that any foreign traveler has come to India and has written extensively about the country. Uh, the book name is Indica, though the book is lost completely in its entirety, and we have only references of Indica from later era authors like Aryan, Strabo, and others who have taken quite a lot of things. Even Plutarch has taken quite a lot of things from Megasthenes while describing India. So we'll look at Megasthenes and what he saw Chandragupta, and he calls Chandragupta by the name of Sandrocotus. This The Roman authors of later era call him Androcotus, but a different variant, but we will call him Chandragupta here. So this is the first part, and he says that the king may not sleep during daytime. He leaves his palace not only in times of war but also for the purpose of judging causes. He then remains in the court for the whole day without allowing the business to be interrupted, even though the hour arrives when he must needs to attend his person. The palace is open to all, even when the king is having his hair combed and dressed. It is then he gives audience to ambassadors and administers justice to his subjects. Now, in Mauryan times, as per Arthashastra, the king had a very busy life, and I'll share to you later. But the life of a king was very tough, as per Arthashastra, because Kautilya has provided a timetable of a king, and it usually starts at 1:30 in the morning and ends at about 10:30 in the night, and he is engaged throughout the day judging causes, having interviews with his ministers, uh, interviews with foreign ambassadors, with his kitchen staff, with his other people. He is occupied day in and day out. He only gets to have about 4 to 4.5 hours of sleep throughout the day, and he sleeps at about 10:30 and wakes up at about 1:30. So that was how Kautilya has mentioned the timetable of the Gupta kings, of the Mauryan kings. And as per him, you could see this king would not sleep during the daytime. He was so busy with judging causes that he had to leave the palace. Many a times he had to leave the palace for judging causes. In Mauryan times, the time for starting your work, which we start today at say about 9:30, 10, but in modern times the court of Patliputra started at about 6 a.m. and it continued till 9 a.m. So for 3 hours, the king was busy judging causes from the people, receiving ambassadors, receiving ministers, and all sorts of things. Uh, and it is important that he the king himself was available to the people all the time, and this is what he has to say. Megasthenes has to say. He says that even while he gets his hair combed and dressed, he receives the people, he delivers justice, and meets gives audience to his ministers or ambassadors. Now, this is very important. So the Megasthenes talks about king's bodyguards, and he says that the care of king's person is entrusted to women. When he goes on to a hunt, it is in a kind of a Bacchic procession, surrounded by women who form a circle. Some of the women are in chariots, some on horseback, some on elephants, fully armed as in war. And this might sound a little strange, but in Mauryan times, the bodyguards of the kings were women, and they used to do all sorts of things, including cooking for the king, making his bed, and attending to him in all other causes, and protecting him. Whether he goes into a hunt, whether he goes into a long journey or a short journey, whether he goes into a war, his bodyguards consisted of entirely of women. Now, I'll show you this this is a great sculpture of Jain temple in Gujarat, and you could see the woman there drawing her bow, and has other ornaments as well. So these were the kinds of people who were, or women who were entrusted to take care of kings. king's safety. Now, it talks about the royal pomp, and he says that Megasthenes says that then comes a great host of attendants in his attire with vessels of gold, such as a large basket and a goblet 6 feet in breadth, table chairs of state, drinking cups and layers, all made of Indian copper and precious stones, emeralds, beryls, and garments embroidered with gold. So this is the royal pomp, how rich the king was, and Megasthenes also says that uh, the king normally would travel in a palanquin or a horse or an elephant, but with an entourage of his bodyguards. So he says that when the king shows himself in public, his attendants carry in their hands silver censers and perfume with incense all the roads by which it is his pleasure to be conveyed. He lolls in a golden palanquin garnished with pearls which dangle all around. This is what I was speaking about. He travels in a golden palanquin. Again, Megasthenes says that the king has a guard of 24 elephants, and when he goes out to administer justice, the first elephant was trained to do him obeisance. As the king passed, the elephant gave him a sort of military salute on a hint from the driver and a stroke of his goad. He rides on a horseback when making short journeys, but when bound on a distant expedition, he rides in a chariot mounted on elephants. And as huge as these animals are, their bodies are covered completely with trappings of gold. This is what Megasthenes has said a little bit about when the king journeys and what happens. So these are some of the things which, of course, Megasthenes says about Chandragupta. There are a lot many things, but I have not tried to cover it right now here because this will be too long otherwise. What I can do is maybe in the near future we can have an episode on Megasthenes' account of India, and in full we can I can mention everything regarding what Megasthenes talks about the king and about the country as well and its people. So this is what Megasthenes has to say about Chandragupta or Androcotus. Now, the last word on Chandragupta. Friends, what happened to Chandragupta? He ruled for a quarter of a century, perhaps between 322 to 298 BCE, and then he suddenly disappears from the scene. Now, he was at that time, by 300 BCE, he was perhaps the most powerful man in the known world. He had the area of equivalent to about 4.8 million square kilometers under his empire, right from Herat to Bengal and from Kashmir to southern Karnataka. But what happened to him? He was under 50 when he disappeared. Why? So let's look at the reasons for that. So we have these Jain traditions which speak about an abdication by Chandragupta, and these traditions have been maintained in the form of either epigraphic evidences or in literature. And but the thing is that these traditions have been written uh, minimum it we start hearing about these things in around 600 AD, at least 900 years after Chandragupta's death, and we continue up to about 14th century. So I leave it to the viewers here regarding the authenticity of the events. I will just put forward the various accounts of the Jains from Jain literature, and also what various Indologists say about it, and I will leave it to the viewers to form a judgment as to what exactly happened to Chandragupta. So these evidences are found about 1,000 years after Chandragupta's death. So we'll look at these evidences. So these are the Jain sources of Chandragupta's abdication and death, and these are as under the Britakatha Kosha by Harisena. It was written in about 931 AD. The Bhadrabahu Charita by Ratnanandi in about 1450. There is a Kannada work called Munivamsa Budhaya of 1650, and then there is a Rajavali Kathe, which is another Kannada work. And the main point is, as this is, I'm quoting from Rajavali Kathe, which says that as a result of a 12-year famine at Magadha, Chandragupta, the king of Magadha, abdicated the throne in favor of his son and followed Bhadrabahu as his disciple. So Bhadrabahu was a Jain monk, and the sources indicate that there was a 12-year drought at Magadha, due to which Chandragupta became disillusioned, and he abdicated and converted as to Jainism, became a monk, and went with his guru Bhadrabahu towards south. This is what Rajavali Kathe say. Now, they also says that Chandragupta became the chief disciple of Bhadrabahu, attended him to his death at Sravana Belagola, which is in Karnataka, about 100 kilometers from Bangalore, where you could find this big statue of Bahubali, which is which Jains worship every year. This is a big statue there, and just near to that place is this Sravana Belagola, and they also talk about a fact that Chandragupta lived his life for some years, and there is a Jain tradition of Salekhana, kind of a ritual suicide, you may say, where the person stops eating food and drinking water and passes away. So Chandragupta performed Salekhana according to Jain practice and passed away. So these traditions have been recorded in local inscriptions. The oldest inscription is about 900 years after Chandragupta's death, and they talk about the pair Yugma Bhadrabahu along with Chandragupta Muni. Now, friends, look at this. Is that inscription which I am talking about? This is in Kannada, about 600 650 AD. They talk about, and there are lots of inscriptions there in Sravana Belagola. This is one of the inscriptions which talk about Chandragupta and Bhadrabahu. So, and we look at some other inscriptions, and there is two inscriptions of about 900 AD near Srirangapatnam, which is near Mysore. They describe the summit of a hill called Chandragiri as marked by the footprints of Bhadrabahu and Chandragupta Munipati. Again, as I was talking about inscriptions at Sravana Belagola, there is another inscription of 1129 mentioning Bhadrabahu, Srutavekevali, and Chandragupta, who acquired such merits that he was worshipped by the forest deities. And this is the place Chandragupta Basadi. This is just there at Sravana Belagola, and according to tradition, Chandragupta performed his penance here. So that has been named after Chandragupta. And a hill at Sravana Belagola is called Chandragiri because Chandragupta lived and performed his penance there. Moreover, the facade of this basti or a temple, which is in the form of a perforated screen, contains 90 sculptured scenes depicting the life of Bhadrabahu and Chandragupta. So and this is what I was talking about, what they were talking about, uh, footprints of Chandragupta, and this is that hill, and you can see this footprints. They belong to Chandragupta Maurya as per traditions, and you can see the locality. This there is another hill just in the foreground, and on in the front you can see two the footprints of Chandragupta himself. Now, what do the foreign Indologists say? This is Dr. V.A. Smith, and he says that the only direct evidence throwing light on the manner in which the eventful reign of Chandragupta Maurya came to an end is that of tradition. His abdication is an adequate explanation of his disappearance at such an early age, when he must be under 50. So we have connected the dots here. Yes, between after Chandragupta's death, say in about 295 BCE, till about 600 AD, there is virtually no mention of how Chandragupta died, or how he abdicated, or whether he abdicated or not. But suddenly after 600, we start getting this information. And this information about Chandragupta's abdication and his subsequent death and his travels to the south. This is a working theory, and we will go into the opposition to this theory as well. So, this is just a working theory which somehow tells you what exactly happened, what were the circumstances under which Chandragupta abdicated and passed away. And this is a very important photograph. This is again at Sravana Belagola, and you could see the entrance to this cave. And as per legends, this is the cave where Chandragupta performed Salekhana as per Jain practices and passed away. So this is a very revered site for the Jains. But if the story is true, then it should be a revered site for all Indians. And just making a small kind of a structure would not do. We need something bigger, something better, something good looking to honor the memories of Chandragupta. Again, and I missed this, but this is one perforated screen. This is an images actually at Sravana Belagola, and they talk about 16 dreams of Chandragupta, and he got 16 dreams in a night, and they were very disturbing dreams. And he went to his Jain minister, and again he forwarded him to Bhadrabahu, and Bhadrabahu explained him everything about those 16 dreams. And influenced by that, here Chandragupta decided to become a Jain monk. First he abdicated, and then became a Jain and followed his guru to the south. This is another one of the stories of Chandragupta's abdication. Now we look at the opposition to the claim. John Faithful Fleet, a great Indologist of the late 19th century, and he has translated many works of Mauryan and Gupta's inscriptions, and he does not believe in these traditions, and he considers this Bhadrabahu as Bhadrabahu too. So there was another Bhadrabahu earlier, but he considers this Bhadrabahu too mentioned in a document called Saraswati Gacha Patravali. And as per this document, this Bhadrabahu became the head of Digambaras in about 53 BCE, and his disciple named Guptigupta succeeding him as the pontiff of Jains in about 31 BCE. In Jonathan Fleet's opinion, this Guptigupta has been confused with Chandragupta. So J.F. Fleet says that this is not Chandragupta, this is Guptigupta, and people have confused somehow Gupti Gupta with Chandragupta. Gupti Gupta was a monk, Chandragupta was a king. So this is not possible. So this is what J.F. Fleet says. Dr. Horney, however, now he has done some critical studies on Jain texts and he records his conclusion that before Bhadrabahu, the Jain community was undivided. With him, the Digambaras separated from Svetambaras, and the Digambaras' separation originally took place as a result of migration southward under Bhadrabahu in consequence of a severe famine in Bihar, the original home of undivided Jain community. So we know that Mahavir and all other Jain Tirthankars uh, they propagated their religion in the Indo-Gangetic plain. But the main center of Jainism was in modern day Bihar, and they were a united community. It was only under Bhadrabahu that there was a separation. There was a separation between Digambaras and Svetambaras. So Svetambars wear white clothes. You may have seen them. Jain movies. Digambars consider the sky as their clothes, so they do not wear anything. So under Bhadrabahu, this unity become fractured, and then Bhadrabahu, along with his disciples, among one of them was Chandragupta, they all migrated toward southern Karnataka. Now, there is another one interesting comment by Dr. R.K. Mukherjee in his Chandragupta Maurya in his times. And he says that there is no evidence to disapprove the fact taken for granted without the need for an argument or demonstration by all Jain writers that Chandragupta became a convert to their religion. So here Dr. Mukherjee says that nobody needs to get agitated, nobody needs to get aggressive about this fact. If these facts are taken, if Chandragupta did convert, he converted. But he converted after his abdication. He did not convert while he was on the throne. While he was on the throne, he was what we call a Hindu emperor or following Sanatana Dharma. But when he abdicated, he left Hinduism, became a Jain monk, and then migrated towards south. And why south? Because those lands, and we have an Ashokan inscription nearby Mysore, and those were the extremities of his empire which he had created. And look at this man who was on top of his game, and he could have ruled for another 10 years, another 15 years, but he didn't. He abdicated, went while he was on top of his game, and then he passed away as per the Jainite tradition, performing Salekhana. So this is what Chandragupta's life and times was. I'll just show this one small pic. Now this is at uh, Shravana Belagola, and we could see there are people who mention that this is figure on the left is Bhadrabahu himself, and on the right it is Chandragupta, who became the disciple to Bhadrabahu. So, friends, this is what happened to Chandragupta. Of course, he passed away, but we now know what are the stories and legends behind it. We had started this episode, the first part, from the birth of Chandragupta in trying circumstances. His mother took him to a cow pen where he was given to goat herders, and then he was seen by Kautilya in a playground playing the game of an king. He took him to Takshashila, gave him education. He became the rebel leader who disposed of the Greeks. Then he overthrew the Nanda Empire. Then he defeated Seleucus, and then he conquered the whole of India, right from the south, from Kashmir to southern Karnataka, and from Herat, or close to Persian borders, from Balochistan area, Kabul, from there to Bengal. So such was the life of Chandragupta, who is perhaps the greatest king India has ever had. Yes, there are others as well, but considering the fact that Chandragupta in his lifetime, his administrative policies, which he created with the help of Kautilya, uh, they actually these administrative policies were there generations after Chandragupta died, and he was the first guy who gave political unity to this country. Uh, so this is it about Chandragupta Maurya and his times, and we'll be back again next time. I will try to figure out what episode we can have, but maybe we can have an inscription an episode on some of the inscriptions, or maybe one inscription, and my mind goes back to the Rock Edict 13 of Ashoka, which is one of the most, or the most important document of Indian history. And perhaps we can have an I can have an episode of next Sunday discussing this particular rock edict. So I thank you all for all your support and cooperation. Please like and subscribe. I'll be back again next week with another episode detailing ancient Indian history. So thank you so much. You can always uh, if you have any questions, any comments, you can write in the comments box. Contact me on Twitter. The mention the username is already there in the description box. So until next time, see ya, and we'll meet again. Thank you so much.